It started like something ripped from an unbelievable street drama. Except it was all real, caught on camera, and destined to shake the internet within hours. Denzel Washington, the man whose face has graced movie posters for decades, whose voice can command the room with a single line, was standing quietly outside a luxury apartment building. There was no red carpet, no security detail, no designer tux. Just him, casually dressed, handing out thick bundles of cash to a group of homeless people huddled near the entrance. The scene was already surreal. A Hollywood legend acting like an anonymous Good Samaritan, no cameras in sight, at least not the kind he was aware of. But lurking a few feet away, the building's security guard was watching, his eyes narrowing, his mind leaping to the ugliest possible conclusion. Before we continue, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell for updates. The guard didn't see generosity. He didn't see a man who had spent decades using his wealth to help others. No, what he saw was filtered through years of prejudice, whispered stereotypes, and the worst kind of racial bias. His pulse quickened, convinced he was about to uncover a crime in progress. Without a hint of hesitation, he stormed forward, his voice sharp, dripping with contempt. "Empty your pockets, monkey," he barked, loud enough for everyone within 20 feet to hear. The words cut through the cold afternoon air like a blade. People froze. The homeless men and women Denzel had been speaking to shrank back, unsure what to do. Even the traffic noise seemed to fade for a second. What the guard didn't realize, what he couldn't have possibly known, was that a documentary crew had been filming across the street. This wasn't a secret sting operation or some kind of underground deal. It was the middle of a quiet, heartfelt project highlighting Denzel's little-known habit of personally handing out cash, food, and supplies to people living on the streets. The filmmakers had been capturing these moments for months, traveling with him to different cities, documenting not just the big, showy acts of charity, but the small, intimate ones that never make headlines. And now, the guard's voice, his insult, his accusation, every syllable of it, was being recorded from multiple angles, every camera rolling. The look on Denzel's face wasn't anger, not at first. It was something more complex, a mixture of disbelief, sadness, and that heavy, familiar recognition that yes, even after everything, the color of his skin could still erase the benefit of the doubt in a stranger's eyes. He didn't shout back. He didn't raise his hands in surrender or try to justify himself. Instead, he took one slow step toward the guard, his voice steady but low enough that you had to lean in to catch it. "Do you really want to do this right now?" It was less a threat and more a mirror, forcing the guard to look at himself, to hear how absurd, how vile, how wrong he sounded. The bystanders didn't stay silent. A woman holding a shopping bag gasped audibly. Someone muttered, "Oh my God, that's Denzel Washington." The guard's posture faltered for a split second, but his pride wouldn't let him back down just yet. "You're handing out rolls of cash to people I've never seen before," he snapped, as though that in itself were a crime. "Looks suspicious to me." His voice carried that defensive edge of a man who realized he might have just stepped on a landmine but still thought he could talk his way out of it. And then came the moment that would change everything. One of the homeless men, a tall, wiry figure with weathered skin and eyes that had seen far too much, stepped forward. "He's been helping me for years," the man said, his voice breaking. "Bought me a coat last winter when I almost froze to death. Got my brother into rehab. You don't know what you're talking about." That testimony, raw and unscripted, was the crack that split the whole scene wide open. More voices joined in, each with a story of how Denzel had appeared out of nowhere one day with kindness instead of judgment, how he never stayed long enough for photos or recognition, how he gave without asking for anything back. The guard's face drained of color as the reality set in. This wasn't a criminal transaction. This was a man doing more for strangers in 10 minutes than most people do in a lifetime. And it wasn't just the small crowd in front of him who now knew the truth. Across the street, a boom mic operator whispered something to the director, who simply nodded and kept the camera steady. The scene had transformed into a living, breathing indictment of everything that had just gone wrong, of bias, of arrogance, of the speed with which some people are willing to reduce others to a stereotype. You could feel the temperature shift. Passers-by who had kept moving now slowed, curious, sensing that something significant was happening. A man with a coffee cup pulled out his phone and began recording too, tilting it to capture Denzel's calm demeanor contrasted against the guard's unraveling composure. And in that moment, it wasn't just about Denzel Washington anymore. It was about every person who's been misjudged, humiliated, or confronted because someone else decided they looked guilty. But here's where the story takes an even sharper turn. Denzel, still composed, still quietly dignified, reached into his jacket pocket. Not to empty it, but to pull out another roll of bills. Without breaking eye contact with the guard, he handed it to one of the women in the homeless group. "Make sure everyone here eats tonight," he said softly. The crowd erupted, not in applause, but in a kind of murmured awe, as if they were watching someone rewrite the rules of how to respond to hate in real time. The guard took a small step back, as if the physical presence of that generosity burned. The documentary crew, sensing they had captured something beyond their original scope, kept filming long after Denzel had finished handing out the last of the cash. They caught the awkward shuffle of the guard as he mumbled something about "just doing my job," the way his eyes darted anywhere but toward the cameras. They caught the way people looked at Denzel afterward, not just as a movie star, but as someone who had just modeled what grace under fire truly looks like. And yes, they caught the tear tracks on the face of the man who had spoken up first, the one who had called out the truth when it mattered most. Later that evening, before the crew even had time to catalog their footage, clips from bystanders' phones began hitting social media. Within an hour, the hashtag with Denzel's name was trending, paired with phrases like "grace in action" and "this is how you respond." The racist remark was there, unedited, impossible to deny, but so was the reality of the moment. The generosity, the composure, the refusal to let hatred define the outcome. The guard's name started circulating too, not because Denzel had revealed it, but because the internet did what it does best: digging, identifying, holding people accountable. For the guard, the regret was immediate and crushing. He hadn't just insulted a stranger. He'd insulted one of the most respected figures in the entertainment world, on camera, in front of a live audience, and for absolutely no reason beyond the color of the man's skin. His employer released a statement by morning, distancing themselves from his words, calling them inexcusable and contrary to our values. By the next day, his position was listed as terminated. The speed of his downfall wasn't surprising to anyone who had seen the video. When you speak with that level of hate, there's no PR campaign in the world that can unring the bell. But the lasting story wasn't about the guard's collapse. It was about the way Denzel had handled it. People online dissected his tone, his restraint, the way he had kept his voice low instead of escalating, the way he had turned the focus back to the people he was there to help. In an era where viral videos often show people shouting each other down, here was a clip that offered something different. A masterclass in maintaining dignity without backing down. That, more than anything, kept the story alive long after the initial wave of outrage had passed. And maybe that's the lesson here. We live in a world where moments like this can explode into the public consciousness in seconds, where one person's worst instincts can be broadcast globally just as quickly as another person's best. The difference lies in how we respond when we're put on the spot, when we're tested, when someone comes at us with everything ugly they've got. Do we let that ugliness pull us down into the mud? Or do we stand our ground, keep our voice steady, and make sure the last thing people remember isn't the insult, but the integrity? Denzel made his choice. The cameras made sure the world saw it. The rest of us? We get to decide how we'll handle our own moments when they come. Now I'm curious, if someone came at you with that level of ignorance and hostility, how would you respond? Would you match their heat, or would you find a way to turn the moment into something bigger, something better? Because if this story proves anything, it's that one calm, deliberate act of grace can outlast 1,000 words.